The Pakistani Tehreek-e-Insaf party has announced Imran Khan as their candidate for Prime Minister of Pakistan. The announcement was made at a parliamentary meeting held in a private hotel in Islamabad, while the exact date of Khan's swearing-in ceremony still remains unknown. Sources say that it could be on the country's Independence Day on August 14th. A spokesperson of the party said that the party now has an unshakable majority in the federal legislature. Allies and reservation seats will take the party's tally to 174 seats in the National Assembly and after the support of the Baluchistan National Party. Mengal, the party will have 177 seats and the PTI has announced that it would be a 15 to 20 member cabinet.
Please request आपसे प्लीज रास्ता छोड़ो सर प्लीज रास्ता प्लीज सर प्लीज रास्ता चलो सर आहिस्ता थोड़ा पीछे चलते जाएं प्लीज रिक्वेस्ट है आपसे आगे रास्ता छोड़ो प्लीज रास्ता छोड़ो सर प्लीज रास्ता प्लीज सर प्लीज
Are the interests of the United States and Al-Qaeda aligned in war-torn Yemen? They certainly are if an investigation by the Associated Press is to be believed. The investigation by the news agency revealed that the coalition forces, backed by the United States, struck deal with Al-Qaeda. It risks strengthening the most dangerous branch of the terror group. The deal uncovered by the Associated Press reflects the contradictory interests of the two wars being waged simultaneously in this southwestern corner of the Arabian Peninsula. In one conflict, the US is working with its Arab allies, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, with the aim of eliminating the terrorists known as Al-Qaeda in the Arab Peninsula, or AQAP. But the larger mission is to win the civil war against the Iranian-backed Shiite rebels known as Houthis. And in that fight, Al-Qaeda terrorists are effectively on the same side as the Saudi-led coalition and by extension the United States.
Within the Yemeni civil war, American interests and Al-Qaeda interests align. The Houthis are a common enemy or adversary, especially in the American case. But the line to draw is that American resources are not going to Al-Qaeda. There is no American support for Al-Qaeda.
Those participating in the front lines know for sure our participation, which was either actual fighting with our brothers in Yemen or by supporting them with weapons and with everything we can provide to the front lines.
وإما بالدعم بالسلاح وبجميع ما نستطيع أن ندعم فيه الجبهات.
الأمريكان على اطلاع بكل ما يدور.
The Americans know everything and more than what we know. They knew about mediations. Step by step, one by one, and they were turning a blind eye. They liked and blessed these mediations.
Two teenagers were killed in Dhaka a week ago after a bus plowed into them. The protest over the incident has brought Bangladesh's capital to a complete standstill. Now, the Bangladesh government has increased the maximum punishment for offenders to 5 years in jail, but it is too late, too little. What's important to note is who is protesting, why they are so angry, and now the anger has erupted on the street, and how brutally the authorities are responding to them.
This is how the streets of Dhaka have looked like for the past week. Roads chock-a-block with protesting students. They've gathered at street corners with placards. They've raised slogans and demanded action. And they have only one demand: make the roads of Bangladesh safer for the public.
The elected representatives manage all their expenditures with our tax money. There is no benefit from elections if the representatives are ignorant about our life security and are reluctant to provide us due services. We will continue the movement if our demands are not met immediately.
These protests have virtually paralyzed Dhaka. and the teenagers have a concrete plan of action. Dressed in their school uniforms, they've erected checkpoints across the city. And much to the embarrassment of the authorities, these teens are forcing the police and ministers to observe traffic laws and enforce them. In return, they are being beaten up and attacked.
They have beaten us with bamboos by kicking us and in various other ways. It does not matter. It won't affect me, but we want safe roads. Whatever is happening to us, let it be. It's not a problem for us. But we want safe roads. We want that in the future no one is killed under the wheels of buses or vehicles. This is what we want.
But what prompted these unprecedented scenes? On July 29th, 2 students were killed and 12 others were injured when a privately run bus plowed into a bus stop. The driver lost control of his vehicle while racing another bus to pick up passengers, a common occurrence in Bangladesh. Traffic laws are rarely observed in the densely populated country. Law enforcement agencies have also failed to ensure effective implementation of regulations. On an average, more than 4,000 people die in road accidents every single year in Bangladesh. Last year, over 7,000 people were killed in road accidents. And the incident 8 days ago seemed to be enough to mobilize the country's youth. Protests turned violent as police used force to disperse the protesting students. Some took to vandalism to prove their point. A few armed men attacked a car belonging to the United States Embassy in Dhaka. The American ambassador and her staff were unhurt, but the incident forced a stronger crackdown. A few offices of Bangladeshi political parties were also targeted.
They attacked party offices several times yesterday. Today 4 to 5 protesters tried to do the same. We prevented them at that time and asked them to go back, but they didn't. Then we had to fire tear gas shells to disperse them.
Even assurances from the Prime Minister herself didn't cut any ice. On Sunday, Sheikh Hasina urged the students to call off their protests and go home. She said, and I quote, "I request all guardians and parents to keep their children at home. Whatever they have done is enough." She also went a step further, hinting at the possibility of these protests being more than just spontaneous anger, hinting at the influence of a third party. Hasina warned that the protests could be sabotaged, putting the safety of demonstrators at risk. Hundreds have been injured in police crackdown in the last 1 week. But these students seem determined, prompting questions about the possibility of a political hand backing the demonstrations. Be that as it may, the sheer numbers of these sustained protests make one thing clear, that Bangladesh has had enough. Bureau Report, WION.
And I'm joined by Shamsher Chaudhary, former diplomat from Dhaka. So thank you for making time for WION. And let me ask you this question. What do these protests signify? Is it only about road safety, or are they signifying something bigger, larger, and deeper in Bangladesh?
Well, I think initially, definitely, the immediate reaction of the students was to the incident of 29th July, which you have described in your own news report, when 2 young students were run over by a bus which was trying to overtake another bus. And this had become a common happenance in Bangladesh over the last few years. The bus drivers and owners have enjoyed a culture of impunity. There have been total disregard for law. Drivers without valid licenses have been on the streets, driving unfit vehicles. Some have been saying that many of the drivers are under the influence of the abuse of substance. So the anarchy which has been described on the roads is because of a combination of all this, and plus poor management and even perhaps corruption in the road transport system. So the protests are not just for the death of these two students, but I think it's an eruption of a long list of such casualties which we have mentioned in your own report. One thing for sure, I think it still prevails, that the protest, the basis of the protest, the main thrust of the protest enjoys huge public sympathy and support. Even parents were seen on the streets helping the children, and you have reported this very, very accurately, I must say. And that's why even the global media has picked it up. The thing is that today the government passed a new law in the cabinet, introducing tougher measures against the breakers of law on the street, and stricter rules or kind of implementation of existing rules on driving permits and road licenses. We hope this works. What is needed, that situation did indeed is serious or was serious. The Prime Minister has, I think, called upon the students to go back, and I don't doubt her sincerity in this. What is needed, of course, is immediate and visible action on the ground, that fake license are no more a reality in Bangladesh, that vehicles do not go out without a valid driving permit or the unfit vehicles, and that the people responsible for enforcing the laws and rules on the street, that is law enforcement, should do a much better job. Interestingly, and I must credit the Commissioner of Dhaka Metropolitan Police, when he, in a press conference, admitted very candidly that the students have opened their eyes. The students are doing things which the police them should do. So the police have admitted that it had failed in the past.
Mr. Chaudhary, yes, you have made a very pertinent point. But is it like a Tunisian movement in Bangladesh where a protest by a hawker actually galvanized the whole country and the regime changed? Because there are multiple perspectives on this issue. For example, a couple of foreign media houses have actually looked into these protests as some sort of a foreign hand, some sort of an outside hand in the protest. But how do you define these protests? Is it like a Tunisian movement? What explains the participation of children? I just saw the visuals. A lot of school children are participating in these protests, sir.
Yes, I think it is the participation of the students, young college and school students, that have given this so much traction and over such a long time. So, the Tunisian example, of course, is very, very different. The fact is that we have had in Bangladesh, where governments have changed through elections in the past. That, of course, was not the case in Tunisia over a very, 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 very long time. So I do not want to extend that far. I think the law that has been passed today will be implemented with total sincerity. The people, not just the students, I think public in general will like to see definite, credible change on the streets. I would not like to take it beyond that at this point of time. But yes, the traction is huge, the public sympathy still remains, and we have to see how the new law is implemented, how quickly, how effectively, and how neutrally.
Thank you, Mr. Chaudhary. Thank you very much for joining us from Dhaka. The United Kingdom has rejected India's demand to ban a pro-Khalistan rally scheduled to be held in London on August 12th. The British High Commission in India has told WION that the rally will go ahead as people have the right to demonstrate their views. The event, which is being called London Declaration, is being organized at London's Trafalgar Square on the 12th of August by a pro-Khalistan group called Sikhs for Justice. India has sent 3 separate note verbals to the United Kingdom asking the government to deny permission for the event. The Foreign Ministry in India said that most Sikhs who live in Britain or other countries have very good relations with India, and India expects that UK will not allow any group to use its land to spread hatred or impact bilateral ties. The pro-Khalistan group has already launched a campaign in London calling for a global referendum to determine whether Sikhs could have their own independent state. Various Sikh bodies in the UK, along with other intellectual and other associated think tanks, have joined hands to boycott the so-called London Declaration. Slain Al-Qaeda terrorist Osama bin Laden's son, Hamza, has married the daughter of Mohammed Atta. the lead hijacker of the 9/11 terror attack in the United States of America. The report says, as per the UK Daily, the news was confirmed to the paper by Osama bin Laden's half-brother Ahmed and Hassan al-Atta. The brother said that they are not sure where the Hamza is, but he could be in Afghanistan. Hamza is the son of the Osama's 3 surviving wives. Khairiyar Sabah was present at the time at Abbottabad compound when the US Special Forces raided the house and killed Al-Qaeda leader in 2011. Saudi Arabia has expelled the Canadian ambassador over Ottawa's vigorous call for the release of the jailed activist. Saudi Arabia has also recalled its envoy while freezing all new trade with Canada. Riyadh gave the Canadian envoy 24 hours to leave in an abrupt rupture of relations over what it called as interference in its internal affairs. The move comes after Canada demanded the immediate release of human rights campaigners arrested during a recent crackdown. The activist arrest came weeks after more than a dozen women's rights campaigners were detained and accused of undermining national security and collaborating with enemies. Breastfeeding is the most natural and ideal way to feed babies. It is a natural process, but a lot of stigma surrounds public breastfeeding. With people staring down at you, giving you uncomfortable looks, many women themselves feel embarrassed to do breastfeeding in public. But now, women around the world are breaking the stigma. This is the way they have done it.
Ask any young mother who has ever breastfed her baby in public. Most of them will say that they've got disapproving looks from strangers. It doesn't stop at that. Many new moms are even asked to leave a public place like a restaurant or store. To break the stigma around breastfeeding in public, women in Philippines have taken up a brave campaign. Over 2,200 mothers gathered in Manila and nursed their children in full public view.
We're here to remove the stigma that you cannot breastfeed outside of your home. So this is a very outward, very public act. And we want to show that breastfeeding is best for your babies.
Breastfeeding is the best for our babies.
It helps keep my baby from getting sick. I've seen it from my relatives how their children are healthy, like when you see their teeth and it's free. In a similar show of strength, thousands of mothers simultaneously breastfed their babies in Colombia. Mothers were seen caring for their children while listening to music, calling for an end to the stigma.
It seems to me that prohibiting breastfeeding in public is like attacking the rights of children because they are the ones who benefit the most.
We should not be ashamed of breastfeed our babies in public because it is an act of love.
Even though public breastfeeding is totally natural, the stigma around it is difficult to shake off. Luckily, plenty of female celebrities are speaking out and working to normalize public breastfeeding. Celebrity mothers are among those encouraging others to take up the practice by sharing their pictures that show them nursing on social media. But how much longer till the world completely accepts public breastfeeding? Bureau Report, WION.